TTB Music Podcast.
I reckon it's just Nick. Troy Boy. Oh, funny. Jax Jones. Grades.
Started, by the way.
Oh. Have we really? I'm still testing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's exciting here this evening, I'll tell you.
Yeah. People,
So-
you don't know what you missed, right?
Yeah, well, you've missed me reading out who produced every album on the podcast. I was halfway through Tiny Tempah's Youth.
You've missed me, well,
Well, the best
indeed.
excitement.
That's probably, yeah.
Yeah, most excitement of the evening's already passed.
Yes. Scott redecorates
Out of that
studio
bottle. Yeah.
with
Oh, it was like-
2.8% beer.
It was like Monaco, listener. You should have been there. The race, not the band.
It truly was like Monaco,
Yeah.
except without the weather.
Cheers. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit lively.
Made a bit lively.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah, so for what first of 2 podcasts this month. Oh,
What? Oh, God, thank goodness.
we are spoiling you. You know.
Oh, you made me jump.
We're getting it out of the way before
I thought I missed something.
Armageddon general election 2017. Okay, so this podcast we have new albums from Father John Misty, Goldfrapp, Julia Holter, Aimee, Mann, Tiny Tempah, and somebody I've forgotten. Who did I forget? Chainsmokers. Sorry.
Chainsmokers.
Yeah, so we shall start with Father John Misty, whose previous album, I Love You, Honey Bear, we were both a bit kind of,
Were we?
yeah, we both liked his lyrical styling,
Yes.
but thought the album was overall a bit kind of,
Okay. No, that sounds
and then
familiar.
then it appeared in virtually every critic's
Oh, he
top
did.
5
Yeah,
of the
well,
year.
we get it so right on the button every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, this is his latest called Pure Comedy, also been well received on release. Comes in at a mere 74 minutes. Pete.
Yeah. Oh, the podcast. Father John Misty, Pure Comedy is possibly my favourite album of the podcast. But we'll come back.
Is this damning with faint praise?
Yeah,
James?
no. It sounds like damning with faint praise, and we'll come back to that. Actually, this was I would say this is an 80% really enjoyable record. It's very, very rewarding on repeat listening. I found that I enjoyed it more than the previous album that we reviewed.
Yes.
Because I've come away from this one thinking, well, that was really good. In terms of the lyrical style, which I think is what you're getting. I think the vocal style was something we referred to before, and I think it sort of I was very reminiscent of George Harrison on the last album. I think there's more of a touch of John Lennon thrown in for good measure on this one as well, and Elton John, dare I say it. When actually on this album you've got a few more frothier, poppier almost tunes.
In tunes, not necessarily in tone.
Not in tone, but in tunes. And I think there's certainly the opening track and a couple of the others later on. There's very much a sort of early 70s Elton John vibe vocally to those. Anyway, that's all the people he sounds like. What does he actually sound like? I actually think that a couple of the tracks on here could possibly be in my sort of top 5 of tracks of the year.
Yep.
I particularly enjoyed Ballad of the Dying Man, and I think it was Total Entertainment Forever, which is the sort of second track of the album.
Is that the one that mentions banging Taylor Swift in its opening
Quite possibly, yes.
couplet? Every night inside the Oculus Rift.
Yes, exactly. The Oculus Rift, and there's a few funny lyrics, like the reference to the Oculus Rift, and later on there's various references to being in the business and doing it just to get laid, things like that, which he has a very sort of Actually, it's called pure comedy. There's definitely a more of a comedic turn to some of his lyrics, and sort of the great songwriting tradition. They're more of your English pop artists, to be honest.
Well, Lamb Wainwright, I thought as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very Wainwright. Very Wainwright. So that kind of helps speed things along. Must admit though, what did I say? 80%. Yeah. Final fifth of the album, it starts to drag.
I said it's 74 minutes.
Yeah, it's too long.
I think it feels like 74 minutes.
It does feel like 74 minutes. So, I mean, 50 minutes in, I'm still having a good time. 25 minutes later, I'm...
Yes,
Yeah.
I would certainly agree with that latter thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think you're right. It is an interesting record in a similar way that his last one was as well. I mean, there's a obviously, as regular listeners will know, anyone that has some bitterness and inventiveness in their lyrics is a bit like catnip to
us
as folk here at CTTB.
Yeah.
And there are probably few to match him on current form. But for me, the question, I suppose, with this record, as with on I Love You, Honey Bear, was, I suppose, an element of the Emperor's New Clothes kind of effect, when you kind of get so impressed and delighted with his turn of phrase and how it's actually delivered, that occasionally you kind of overlook the musical accompaniment to said lyrics. And similarly to the previous album, I don't think the music is up to the standard of his lyric writing.
No.
Overall.
Okay.
Which is not to say that there isn't good stuff on it. I agree with you. Totally Take Forever, Ballad of a Dying Man. I even like Leaving LA, the 13 minutes of...
Yes. Yeah,
13 minutes, I mean, there's a great line there when it says, I wrote down, Mara taunts beneath the tree. She's like, oh great, just what we need, another white guy in 2017.
Yes.
He takes himself so goddamn seriously.
Yeah.
They got quite like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are a few things, throwaway lines like that. We're talking about Elton John and things like that. I also think his singing style also bizarrely reminded me a lot of Glenn Campbell.
Ah, yeah.
And you can actually almost imagine Glenn Campbell singing some of these songs in a strange kind of warped kind of way.
Yeah.
So overall, I think you're right in that there's definitely more good in it than bad in it, although it's still probably, due to its length, a kind of strong and stable album.
Oh, very good.
Thought I'd get in there first.
You got in there first?
Yeah.
That was my gag, by the way.
So,
I don't know where it keeps coming from.
Absolutely. So we move on to
Both Saxon. Yes.
EDM. Allegedly.
EDM?
In the
Really?
in the gays guys.
Oh,
And
right.
maybe even gays. Of the Chainsmokers.
Yes.
Memories Do Not Open.
Right.
Which, as you've already taken the piss, it's produced by people like DJ Swivel and Kin and Mac and Phil and Captain Cuts.
Captain Cuts.
Yeah, this is quite funny. I listened to this album a couple of times. I think it was last week. I was I had a day off and I was doing some stuff around the house, so I put it on. I played through a couple of times, and I got to the end of that, and I thought, oh, I might not have time to listen to it again, so I'll do our usual thing of find out what Metacritic thought of it and see what the reviews were like. And you go into Metacritic, and it's a Metacritic rating of 43, which, if you are regular listeners of this podcast, this is very highly unusual for something to be actually rated at lower than 50%. And to say this album has got a kicking is understatement. Some of the comments about it, Rolling Stone said, Memories is drab, monotonous whinge. USA Today, Memories is the worst album of 2017. Metacritic's worst album of the year so far, Metacritic said, a lifeless, anodyne pop record that wallows in basic feelings of regret and narcissism, says Pitchfork. And as honest as those were, I had to be honest and say, when I'd listened to the album the first two times I listened to it, I thought, this is a bit harsh.
That's a
bit.
Not much.
Yeah.
No, it's not that harsh.
What this album feels like is like listening to the radio. And it's literally like listening to the radio for 45 minutes.
Turn
and,
over.
And you think it's like it's all different artists, but they all kind of sound the same.
Yes.
So it's take this female vocalist, put her into this song, take this male vocalist, put her into that song. And the review, I was trying to think of what my feelings about the album were. And then the Guardian review nails it. The line in that nails it for me is, and this sums up this record: instantly memorable yet completely forgettable music. That's it. Because
that's it.
This, for example, the prime example of this is track 5, Something Just Like This, which is a song they did with Coldplay. And the first time I saw them was, in fact, on the Brits. They did the song on the Brits with Coldplay. I've heard this song now at least a dozen times. I could not hum you a single note from the song, despite the fact I've heard it that many times. Rest of the album, same. I listened to this album twice. While I was listening to it, I was thinking, yeah, that's fine. Can't remember a single thing about it. Forgettable.
Very.
And I'm not quite sure whether it's inoffensively offensive music or offensively inoffensive music.
Probably the former.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, my first question is, how the F did they get Coldplay on here? and if the last album was strong and stable, this is a correlation of chaos.
It is.
Yeah. As you say, every track was like listening to another band somehow thrown together. I mean, I'd go as far as to say that actually the Coldplay one is the one that just about hangs together well as a track. The ones featuring feet, there's a lot of feet on this album.
There's a lot of feet.
The ones featuring Emily Warren, who I'm sure is a delightful young lady, they're just awful. They're just awful tracks, and she's used badly. And
do you get the feeling that they've clearly kind of written those tracks for like Rihanna or someone who turned it down?
Yeah, it has that feeling. I know. It's just I found this. I listened to it 2 or 3 times, this album, and it's absolutely insane. The first 3 tracks sound like a completely different band to the end of the album.
Well, the final track is particularly odd because it has Florida Georgia Line, who are kind of country band, and that really feels out of place.
And it just feels completely out of place with everything that's gone before. So for me, it just felt it's very 2017. It is just like it's an album made for carving up. It doesn't hang together well at all.
Quite literally.
Carving up. Yeah, it's just like, I like that track. I'm going to download it and then forget about it, because that's what pop music is. I suppose it's throwaway. But yeah, really, rubbish.
Yes. Memories do not open.
Memories do not even. Yeah.
Goldfrapp, Silver Eye. Return of Goldfrapp. They've been away for
They've been away a while, haven't they? What have they been up to?
So they've been away. I'm trying to think if we reviewed the last album or not.
I can't remember.
I can't remember if we did. Because the last album was kind of an acousticy, kind of almost folky type thing.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I seem to remember that was alright.
Yeah,
it
was. Clearly, this time they've gone back more electronic.
Yeah, but it falls short of a return to form for me. And I can't. It sounds crazy saying this because they're a great act and they're a good band and they've produced some mighty fine albums over the last. Oh God, how long is it now? 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
But one as ever gets a sense that I had to come back with another acoustic album or something completely different.
Yeah.
It might have been more memorable. Whereas this just felt a little bit by the numbers, if I can be so frank. It's just, there were some good tracks on here, and I particularly enjoyed System Magic, like that.
Yes.
And there are a few hits further on in the album as well. Moon in Your Mouth towards the end of the album I particularly enjoyed as well. It was quite nice. But to be honest with you, again, there isn't much that's memorable in between.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying I had the third listen to this coming home from work today, and it hung together much better on third listen than it had done on the first 2 listens. I'll give it that because I'm probably slight, and I was feeling this is going to be one that I'm going to go. Oh yeah, no, this is the one. This has won me over. And then I realised actually it was pretty much only the first 3 tracks
Yeah.
and then a couple of tracks towards the end that were me over, and
Yeah.
the rest of it was
The rest
still
of it, just
filler.
in the
Yeah.
middle. Yeah, exactly.
So as you say, it is one of those albums where you're thinking, hey, if you're a Goldfrapp fan, you're going to think, yeah, it's alright.
Yeah, it's alright.
But it's not.
No.
It's not setting the world on fire.
No.
Sorry.
Sorry. Really wanted to like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, Julia Holter in
we're
the
moving through
same
these,
room.
aren't we?
Yes, we are moving through these. There's pubs to be got to and
Oh,
everything.
good grief.
Yeah, Julia Holter is another one of those artists that's been around for a few years and been quite well critically reviewed. This album came up before I realised it was a kind of live best of type thing. Although it's a live album without being a live album in the sense that it's been
It's in a studio.
yeah, it's live in the studio.
Yeah.
Studio. I think Domino Records, who are her record company, have decided to do a whole host of albums with their artists. Just basically taking them off tour in the middle of a tour and getting them to do basically their live version of their set, but record it in the studio rather than in front of a
Excellent.
crowd.
It's commendable.
Well, it's a gimmick, isn't it? It's like any gimmicks that can work these days. One thing I think is clear from the off here, without having to do any reading up about Holter, is it's very clear that she's an experimental musician.
Yeah.
I suspect that she's probably not too bothered about being huggy and feely and giving her monkeys what anyone particularly thinks of her music. She's certainly destined not to be a multi-platinum selling artist anytime soon, I wouldn't have thought. Which is not a bad thing. I mean, the album kind of, for me, kind of moves kind of back and forth between that kind of Bjork stroke Bowie in his jazzy Scott Walker type demeanour. So particularly on the opening track, like Horns Surrounding Me, it's very kind of song that I can imagine Bowie being a fan of. And it kind of moves between that and more kind of, I suppose, Natalie Prass type sounding things. I'm thinking in particular of So Lilies, which is the second track on the album, and Feel You, which is about halfway through, which I think is perhaps the standout track on the record. It's very uneven, and I have to say, on the two listens I got through it weren't really enough to decide one way or another whether I thought I wanted to invest more time in her or not. So it's in a way, some aspects of the Father John Misty album were coming back to me, and I was thinking, I ended the album leaning more towards admiration than love. But yeah, it's not without merit.
That's a fair comment. I found her musical style quite intriguing. Because it's not what I expected. I don't know what I expected, but certainly the first half of the album, there's a lot of, it's kind of a kookiness.
Yes.
To her. I see what you're saying about Bowie. There's that kookiness that she doesn't necessarily follow a particular style playing this live set, and that's quite entertaining for a while. But again, like the Father John Misty album before it, I found that this album went on just a little bit too long. And
there's more 7 and 8 minute tracks towards the latter half of the album.
Exactly, and I think I lost the thread at one point. I think it was City Appearing, which is about 7 or 8 minutes long, and it just goes on forever. And I found I was actually zoning out. I zoned back in. I was like, is this still on? Which, when you've got the thing jammed in your ears playing away, I mean, it's not a good place to be. So for me, this was difficult. Again, it's difficult because this is a record I wanted to like more from the off. I thought the opening was really strong, but again, as time went by, it dragged. Now, I guess if you're a fan, and I guess if you've heard some of these tracks in their original form, there's probably a whole level of reward that we're completely missing.
Indeed, yeah, which is one of the reasons why we tend to not to shy away from these kind of compilation records normally. Note to self: check before. So, moving on to a more established artiste, but another artist who has gone more acoustic in this particular outing, and that's the latest album from Aimee Mann and mental illness.
Mental illness. It's a theme
It is a theme,
that runs through this.
but not really. It's not. It's an album that's not really about mental illness per se. Is it?
No, but you know, a certain turn of phrase and lyrics here and there. It's kind of resonated throughout the album, potentially as a theme. I thought. For me, again, I was trying to distinguish, because we've reviewed albums of hers before, of course, and I was trying to again find what was different about this. I mean, yeah, it was a perfectly solid, strong and stable record, and that's fine, and fans of Aimee Mann would enjoy it. I guess it didn't really sort of stick with me.
Yeah.
In a way that again, the previous two records that we mentioned, like Father John Misty and what's her name, Julia Holter,
Yes.
who we mentioned earlier a moment ago, those sort of records stick with you. But no, this has sort of passed me by a little bit. I have to admit, I only got this one in twice, so maybe it's the old important third lesson. So you go for it, because I know you're a fan.
I'm a fan.
I expected you to do some heavy lifting on this one.
I'm a fan. I think you're right. There is a theme, and the title lends itself to that theme. Although perhaps only on Lies of Summer, which is particularly about someone that's bipolar and a bit sociopathic, and that kind of, and the lyrics in that are quite good. I think the kind of that thing when you suddenly realise this about somebody and you're kind of looking back on your kind of past interactions with them and kind of going, kind of thing. Yeah. Again, if this album has a problem, it would be because it is pretty much solely acoustic. You could level a sameness thing at it, unless it's that type of thing. If you're a fan of people, you tend to kind of move through sameness.
You can be more forgiving.
Yeah. I do think there's some really good stuff on it. Goose Snow Cone, the opening track, which is written about a cat called Goose. You know.
Yeah, I mean.
Watch the video on YouTube. It's quite fun. Patient Zero as well, which I kind of like that. Which apparently that's that whole thing about being famous and starting to cope with it. Apparently they just met Andrew Garfield after he just arrived in LA, and his kind of starstruckness was kind of one of the inspirations for that particular song.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's something.
And Simple Fix towards the end of the album I really like again, partly because the lyrics, it's all about that kind of thing of people kind of looking at their relationship and what's gone wrong with their relationship and how to fix it, but nobody's actually doing anything about it, because the fix is to simply leave, get out, but they're not doing it, they're not walking away, and how that happens to so many people, and they just get into that rut and just don't go. It's 40 minutes long, which obviously was a big tick for me. So even though you could say there's some sameness, it ends quite quickly. It doesn't really outstay its welcome, and overall, I'm going to go back to our original solid.
Yes. Yeah, it is solid.
Less solid is Tinie, Tempah and Youth, which is our final album. I like Tinie. He kind of comes across as a really nice bloke, and I know someone that met him with her kids and said that he was delightful, both with her and with said kids who were kind of about 10, 11. So it pains me to say that this album is, well, mostly bollocks, frankly. It is back to what you said earlier on. It's another coalition of chaos record for me. Lots of featurings, lots of other people on it. Lots of people I just don't care about, and lots of really just boring tracks. I mean, the things where it works and where it is engaging tend to be the tracks that just feature Tinie Tempah and nobody else. So I'm thinking of things like Holy Moly and Light Work particularly. Both really good tracks, quite strong. Head and shoulders above virtually everything else on this record. I mean, towards the end of the album, I suppose the featuring Jake Bugg and the featuring Jess Glynn tracks are both fine, but they're both fine because they basically sound like Jake Bugg and Jess Glynn tracks that have just got a little bit of Tinie Tempah on rather than the way around. It's an hour long. I listened to it twice, and that's 2 hours I feel that I've definitely wasted for this podcast. Sorry, Tinie, but no, not a good record. Already a leading contender for Gold Cobra Award.
Really?
Along with Chainsmokers.
So I'm going to
disagree with me.
I'm going to disagree. I agree with a lot of what you said, actually. Yes, it is too long. Yes, there are too many different genres squeezed in. It's nowhere near grime. It's too shiny for grime, if you pardon the pun. You know, as I think on CTCB we've begun to discover that we like our grime to be really grimy.
We do.
We need to be straight out the trap with that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. It just feels like a pop album.
It is a pop album.
It is a pop album. You know, there's a track on here which is EDM. There is a track on here that is Jake Bugg, as you say.
Yeah.
You know, there's a track on here that I'm sure there's a track on here that goes a bit folky at one point as well. And as you say, I think the better tracks are when he's just being himself. However, in leaping to the defence of Tinie, I would go further to say that actually, unlike the Chainsmokers album, which really does feel like a compilation of bollocks, this one does have a charm to it that runs throughout, and he clearly has a rapport with supporting artists. Supporting artists come in, yes, they might just come in and bring in themselves, and then you don't get much Tinie Tempah. But in a sense of one or two of them, you get a bit more of a collaboration lyrically. So yeah. I would say, in defence of Tinie Tempah, if you're going to have an album with all your best mates, then you may as well do it this way than the Chainsmokers way. I would also say that actually, hey, isn't it nice for, you know, young black artists to be actually enjoying being famous? Looking at you, Drake. You know, it sounds like he's having a good time recording this.
Drake's probably a really fun guy.
I bet he is. So you know,
he must be.
It sounds to me this album sounds like a really good time, and isn't that what youth is? Prontish.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah. Well,
on that note,
I wouldn't either anymore.
On that note, join us again next time when we'll be reviewing new Gorillaz album, Harry Styles album, a new album from Angelina Presley, new Todd Rundgren album, and 2 other albums that I've already forgotten what they are.
Gosh, there's actually a chance we might enjoy something out of that lot.
Quite possibly, but
yeah.
Let's not count our chickens and all that.
Okay. See you next time, folks.